I guess I thought that Joe Biden's endorsement of her was forced. That was my general feeling at the time, that they kind of leaned on him and said, you got to get out and you got to give her your endorsement because we don't have time for this open primary. And that, frankly, that could still be true. I don't know. But they're changing the messaging on it now, or they're offering some new messaging. Because, Emily, there is a question, back to your point you just made, whether Kamala Harris could have distanced herself from Joe Biden, or whether her not doing that was in any way part of a deal that she made with him. Like, when he called her up to say, I'm stepping out, was there some sort of a deal struck where she said, I would love to have your endorsement, and he said, I'll give it so long as you don't run around for the next 100 days bashing me? I don't know what happened in that conversation, but for the first time now we're learning from Nancy Pelosi, supposedly, that she didn't expect that endorsement and that she allegedly was sitting there waiting for the open primary bottoms up thing that they all told us we got and that we didn't get. And listen here to her here in the New York Times interview she gave.
Should there have been an open primary, though?
Well, see, we thought that there would be. It was the anticipation was that if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary. And as I say, Kamala may have. I think she would have done well in that and been stronger going forward. But we don't know that. That didn't happen. We live with what happened. And because the president endorsed Kamala Harris immediately, that really made it almost impossible to have a primary at that time.
It's very interesting. She's basically blaming Biden for Kamala Harris becoming the nominee, suggesting the rest of us were not expecting it to go down like that, but he forced her on us.
Yeah, I mean, this is Nancy Pelosi at her, let's say, shrewdest, I guess. Her political instincts are strong, but I'm also curious as to how hard leaders like Nancy Pelosi were pushing Joe Biden to resign before he ultimately did after that debate, because you can really take the disaster of this election for Democrats all the way back to Joe Biden's decision, A, not to entertain a primary, B, then not to actually listen seriously to public polling that people saw that he was way too old. I mean, the polls, when you go back, it was so obvious that people were like uncomfortable with Joe Biden's age. And now Nancy Pelosi is saying, we all expected an open primary. It's interesting, Megyn, because that answer that Kamala Harris gave on The View, I think was October 8th. And now there's some schadenfreude about Sunny Hostin unintentionally like bringing down the Kamala Harris campaign by asking how she'd be different from Joe Biden. And she didn't have an answer other than there's nothing that immediately comes to mind, which I think gets to your theory. It's like that would be the one question that you would have a scripted and just like pitch perfect answer to. That is the one question. And then they did some cleanup on it after that horrible answer. But it does
Barely,
get to your
though.
theory. Right.
Barely. It was the kind of cleanup I
like,
do of my kitchen. Very half-hearted.
It's like, she didn't have permission. It's possible she didn't have permission to actually go as hard after the Biden legacy as she needed to. And anyone could have told you that.
Come on.
Anyone could have told you that when the switch happened, that you would need to go to have a successful campaign. You would need to go very, very hard against inflation. You would need to go very, very hard against immigration. Could she have done that? I mean, she would have been lying. She would have been lying, but she could have gone harder.
Go ahead, Eliana.
No, I don't buy that. Look, she could tell Biden, okay, they made a deal in the back room. Let's just stipulate. Then she gets the nomination. What's he gonna do when she starts trashing him? This is, big boys and girls presidential politics. What's he gonna do? I just don't buy that she just felt the need to keep her word so much she couldn't, run a good campaign.
Why didn't she do it? Why do you think she didn't go after? She offered no separation between them.
Occam's razor, she has bad judgment and she's a bad politician. And I think she's risk averse and she doesn't like to make decisions. And, that would be my best guess as to why. And it takes a certain level of skill to separate yourself from an administration of which you were a part. And I'm not sure she actually has that level of rhetorical skill.
That's so dumb. That's driving me crazy. She's so stupid. Is Jen O'Malley Dillon so stupid? David Plouffe is not so stupid to understand how to say the following. My role as vice president was to support him and his agenda. No one elected me to enact my agenda. They elected me to be in a supporting role to the guy who won, and I've performed in that role. Now I'm being asked, what is my agenda? And I will tell you, my agenda is we need to do something about the border. We need to do something about inflation. I've seen these problems and I understand the pain people are feeling. And then you just pivot away. Like, she was totally incapable of doing even that. The advisors must have seen the need to do that.
Yeah, well, Megyn, I think you'd make a much more capable presidential candidate than Kamala Harris.
I think so,
or Jen O'Malley Dillon or David Plouffe. Yeah. And I think also that's the thing. Like, the Biden family, Biden is waning, but Biden is still powerful. The Biden family, his allies are powerful. People like Jen O'Malley Dillon, a Biden ally, is powerful and would be after a potential Kamala Harris loss. They still are. That's the amazing thing in Democratic politics, is how often you can fail upward and continue to get successful positions after losing and losing and losing. So all of their like ruminations right now are kind of amusing from the outside. But the sad thing is that there's this tug of war going on. You saw it on MSNBC when Eddie Glaude Jr. and Stephanie Ruhle tried to kind of disagree with Eddie Glaude Jr. that this was all about bigotry and racism and misogyny. And she said people voted for Trump because of inflation in their pocketbooks, their bank accounts. And he stepped back in and said, no, that's, basically said that she was out of touch as a white person. And Stephanie
hold your thought on that. I'm going to play the soundbite and take it on the back end.
So good.
There's this sense, right, that whiteness, right, is under threat. The demographic shifts. The country isn't what all of these racially ambiguous children on Cheerios commercials are confusing the hell out of me. Right?
Eddie, a lot of people voted because their life's too damn expensive, and it was here, and
they voted for. You're telling me, Stephanie, that all of these people who believe that their lives are, that bread is too high and eggs are too high, that they voted for a convicted felon, a guy who said we can grab the pea.
But I think there are tons of people that don't pay attention to, and I'm not defending it, don't pay attention to politics at all. But while we live in the most prosperous country in the world, people are saying life's not fair. I'm not doing well. My son's still living in the basement. I can't seem to get a job. I don't like the status quo. I'm voting for something else.
I do not believe that. I cannot believe that.
Oh, Lord.
And the reason I think you believe
your drama
it is because you don't want to believe that that's what's really motivating them. It's always the case. People don't want to believe what the country actually is, because if they believe it, they're going to have to confront what's in them.
Princeton University professor. Good Lord. Can I just say one thing? Like, all of it, even her, I'm not defending it. They're uninformed. I just want to concede that they're uninformed. I'm not defending it. They don't have the time to understand what a fascist, awful person he is. So they just voted for their pocketbook. And then Emily playing like the emotion. You don't get it. He's basically playing the race card. Like, you don't understand. You don't want to believe what the country is, but I have to live it. I would have laughed in his face. It would have been fun to laugh in his face. Honestly, one of these days I want to sit down. I have a lot of Black listeners and viewers to this show. I would love to see any one of them sitting across from this guy playing his empty race card over and over. It only worked against Stephanie Ruhle because she has currency with these white liberal elites who need you to feel that way. You need to accept Eddie's worldview in order to be invited back to the cocktail party. So she's got to be like, oh, yeah, I feel the same. We're terrible. But, it's just like they didn't do their homework. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, she's my favorite. I call her Stephanie What About Park Avenue rule, because one time she actually challenged Biden for demonizing Park Avenue and said people who live on Park Avenue are Americans too, Mr. Biden. Amazing. But that is, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I would love to see a Black Trump supporter in conversation with Eddie Glaude Jr. because it is just so insulated. But this is what's happening in the party right now is you have like half of the voices saying that this was about misogyny and racism, and the problem was with America, not with Kamala Kamala Harris. Then you have the other half, people like John Favreau and Ezra Klein, who are now trying to say the Democratic Party is fundamentally out of touch. You have to start treating people like Joe Rogan, who's a median voter, who's not a conservative person at all. You have to start treating him with respect, and you have to start treating him seriously, and you have to start treating his listeners with respect. And those two positions, what I find amusing and also kind of disgusting about it is that the people who are playing the race and sex card are holding everyone else hostage and prisoner because they, and by the way, everyone else who is now trying to course correct is responsible for their own hostage situation because they emboldened and they promoted that bullshit for years and years and years. And now they're actually trying to course correct, and they can't because they're being held back by Eddie Glaude Jr., who said just the dumbest stuff right there and has been promoted to be on MSNBC like every minute of every day. If you look up at MSNBC, there he is, because they were supporting and promoting those ideas about American voters.
So right. Emily, that is so brilliant. That's exactly right. They painted their own prison cells and now they're locked in them and can't figure out how to get out of them. And Eddie's on the outside like that you're where you belong. Here's just a little bit more from this guy. The audience may remember we ran a soundbite of him in October where he almost broke down on MSNBC. Watch.
He's dangerous. He's dangerous to particular people. Because we got to keep this troglodyte out of office. Because if he comes in, our babies are going to be in danger. Because remember, those young children are going to grow up with the memory of having to not go to school for the threat of bombs. And somebody told them that their moms and dads eat cats. They eat cats and dogs. I'll get myself together, Claire.
Okay, take a minute. Deep breath.
Oh
well, what
God.
about that? I understand.
Eddie, he did need a minute to find his balls. What's with the blubbering? They're going to have to. Oh, my God. The bomb threats were bullshit from a foreign country. Of course, they're talking about Springfield, Ohio, in the wake of the dogs and cats thing. This is a card. This is a manipulation, Eliana, by this guy to be on there I'm crying because I'm black and the children were shamed by the dogs and cats thing. And here he is again, now to Stephanie Ruhle, you just don't want to admit what America is to people like me. The whole point of this, and I made this point on Friday, is there's no excising that lunacy from the Democrat Party. They made the Eddie Glaude Juniors, and they're going to have to live with the Eddie Glaude Juniors. And I don't know what their future looks like, but they cannot coexist in the same party if they try to take out their fealty to identity politics.
Well, Megyn, you asked why didn't Harris throw Biden under the bus and say, inflation is a huge problem, immigration is a huge problem. And I think part of it was fear of the Eddie Glaude Jr. wing of the party and how they would react if they saw her pivot to say, the concerns of Trump, the concerns Trump raises and the concerns of his voters are serious, because that faction of the party simply doesn't believe that. They believe that the animating force of those voters is racism, misogyny, and bigotry. And I think, there was no point throughout this election at which she was willing to stand up to the far left of the party, including in clarifying why she had pivoted away from some of her, Looney Tunes 2019 positions. And I do think, I think that's probably the best explanation for why she didn't disown Biden. And the other thing I would say about Eddie Glaude Jr., et cetera, is Trump thrives off of that, off of the dynamic of their existence. Their views are so alienating to the MAGA wing of the party. And he truly thrives off of that dynamic. And, when I see that sort of thing, my response is sort of keep going.
Me too.
Because they are propelling, every time one of those clip airs, a new Trump voter is created.
Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you can impact your family, friends, and your community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 340 academic programs as of June of 24, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.